Hi guys, this is the video on blocking. You'll have to bear with me because I'm on my floor and it's not easy when you're pregnant. Anyway, what I've done with this piece, I'm going to pick the camera up in a moment. At its most basic level, what you'll need is a towel, some pins, and a tape measure, and a spare room with a carpet that nobody's going to walk on for the next 24 hours. At its most basic. I like these foam mats. I happened to come across them in Aldi when I was doing my shopping, and I thought they'd be ideal for blocking, and they are. But the likes of Wilko's and Asda also do the small number ones for the kiddie winks, and they're just as good. But like I said, if you've got a spare room with a carpet you can pin down onto, that'll be more than sufficient. You could even pin something small down onto your ironing board if you wanted to do that too. So this piece here I've pinned down with just normal dressmaking pins, and I'm going to give you a closer look in a moment. And it's dry, this piece, so excuse the angles. Right, this piece is dry and it's been pinned out to the specifications of the pattern, which is 14.5 centimeters high, and it was 44.5 centimeters. I've left this end here so you can see how actually pinning it out already makes a difference. Now when it's dry like this, there's two options. You can, excuse the wire, you could spray it with a spray bottle with just plain water in, everyday water in, and then leave it to dry au natural. Or you can at this point use a steam iron with full steam head and lightly steam over the top. You never ever touch the fabric. Both options would work. It's whatever's convenient to you. However, because the yarns for this particular project are either 100% acrylic or have a high percentage of acrylic, apart from those using cotton, you don't want to add too much direct heat to it because it'll spoil the complete look of your piece of work. So I've just pinned this one out dry to let you have a look, but I'm now going to go through the process of wet blocking. And like I said, you could just put a dry towel down on your carpet, on a carpet in a room that doesn't get used frequently, and pin your piece out on that. But these foam boards, I have to say, are fantastic. And if you've got long pieces of work, you can fit them together a bit like a big jigsaw puzzle. So you can fit them together to make a piece as big or as small as you want. So I'm just going to put the camera back down and move this for you, and then we'll get on to the process of wet blocking. Oh. So what you need, people, is a bowl of just tepid water, warm water, and a towel that's ready to go, because we don't want the pieces to be soaking wet. So what I will do is just bring the camera down as much so you can see. So I hope you can hear me. So I'm just going to take one piece and put it in till it's wet. No strenuous wringing, just a little dab to get quite a bit of the excess out at this point. And then we just put it on this towel, which I'll just move down so you can see. I'm just going to put it on the towel here, and then I'm going to fold the end up so that none of the piece actually touches itself, and I'm just going to roll it up and gently put a bit of pressure on to get quite a bit of the water out. So we need to get, it's still going to be wet but not soaking wet, it just needs to be damp really. So just give it a little part to get some of the water out, and we just unroll. So that piece now is just, it's nice and it's just damp, it's nice and wet. So move the towel because we don't need the towel no more, and I'll show you how I would pin this out. Excuse me. Right, Like I said, normal dressmaking pins will do, which I'll just show you. Just your normal dressmaking pins, they'll do the trick just as good. There are pins out there that you can buy that are specifically for blocking. They're just really long. So it's entirely up to you. If you've got plenty of dressmaking pins, they'll do the job just as well. You'll also need your trusty tape measure. I know some people haven't done tension squares and they're quite happy to have their piece of work bigger or smaller, whatever. What we're looking for is consistency. So whatever size you're blocking them at, they all need to be blocked the same. I don't think you can see very clearly on this mat, but one of the advantages of using this mat is that it's got little lines on, so for keeping perpendicular lines and straight lines, it's really, really helpful. So what I'm first of all going to do is just, I know this is really hard for you to see, but if you want to see the whole piece, that's got to be a big compromise somewhere. Right, so I'm going to open my pins. So I find this way easier because the piece is wet and damp, so it all stretches a bit easier. So I'm just going to put a pin in this corner and I'm going to anchor it down, and that's going to be my 44.5 point, which I know you can't see on there. I'll try and zoom it at some point. And then because I'm going to use the lines on my piece here, I need to double check I'm on the right line just to help keep things nice and straight. So I need to be along this line here. Right, so we're just going to pin this corner. Don't worry, it will stretch. Okay, so and now, and it will go back as well. That's the beauty of it being wet. So I'm just going to pin this corner down as well. I know you can't see my hands very well at this point, but I'll show you when it's all pinned down. So that's so while I've got the bottom nice and straight, I'm going to just pin it down at regular intervals. So let's just make sure. Try and pin in a stitch rather than the chain or the bottom of your, or the right at the bottom of your piece of work. If you use a stitch, it prevents some of the beveling. But I think because it's damp, it just looks a bit neater as well. So that, don't worry about that pulling up, it will. There's nothing we can do about that. But just regular intervals, I'm just going to stick a pin in. But I'm going through the actual stitch. And you may not think this will have a big impact on the piece of work that you've got, but actually it will. Because it will ensure that all your pieces are the same size, so that when you come to put everything together, it will be uniform, it'll look nice and straight. I'm just going to keep doing this at regular intervals along the bottom. But like I say, go into the stitch rather than that. If you pull the chain, you'll create a wave. Into the stitch. There's going to be a little bit of a bevel. There's nothing much you can do about that. You can get it as straight as possible. Just going to bring that down one. Right, now I've got the bottom nice and secure. I'm going to mark the sides so that we know that it's going to be the correct height. So for this particular pattern, and because I did a tension square and a gauge pattern and tension and gauge square, I know that I wanted mine to fit as per the pattern exactly, but I know out there's some variation, and that's fine. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so again I'm going to use the lines on my piece of board here, but as long as it looks a bit straight. So I'm just going to pin that corner there, again going into stitches. Some of the prominent places, I know the pink and the aqua colours seem to pull the work in a touch, so if we just pull them out a touch, and again you're just putting pins evenly up the edge, again working into the stitch, or where there's a join even might be a bit better because it's a bit more robust at that point and it doesn't pull out so much. Put one in there. Okay, put one or two in there, and we're going to do exactly the same at the other end. I'm going to measure the 14.5 out at the other end. Use the lines on the board as a guide. Right, and then I'm just going to pin this side here. Don't worry about pulling this guide, it's got flex in it, you can't hurt it. There we go, two more. Okay, now we've just got the top row now to do, and it should measure correctly because we measured everything else, and it's 44.5, so that's great. So because I have the advantage of the lines on this board, I don't need to keep measuring at intervals. But if you don't have the luxury of having something where it's got a straight edge, just measure in the middle and a quarter point to make sure you're getting everything at the right height. But again, pick a stitch and just pull, guys. It really won't hurt your work at all. Might look painful, but it isn't. So just pulling up to the same point. There we go. And it probably feels alien to you to stretch your work, but it will look better if you do. Okay. Oh. Right. It's a bit of a labour of love, guys. But you can see already that it's taking shape, literally. I just need to pull in up a touch on that one and that one and that one. Okay. Oof. Just got this end to do now. Again, don't be frightened to tug your work. The idea is to get it looking its best. So, again, pin in a stitch rather than the edge. Ooh. Couple more. One more. So that's it all pinned out, guys, to the measurements in the pattern. Obviously I am using quite a lot of pins. Don't worry about these tuggy edges. It's a temporary thing. And it, like I said, when you put all your pieces to work together, it'll look neat. So just give you a quick close-up. So that's the piece pinned out, damp, to the pattern specifications. Again, you just make sure that all your pieces are the same size. Don't be fighting to give it a tug and a pull. You can't really damage it at all unless you're really pulling it into a shape that it just can't stretch to. And all you would do is leave that to dry, air dry by itself, and it must be completely dry before you take all the pins out. Again, I've used quite a lot of pins just on one piece, so you may find that you need to do each piece one at a time. But I hope you found that helpful. I will stick a picture on tomorrow when this is perfectly dry, and I won't block one of them so that you can see the difference that blocking actually makes. So there's more than one way of doing this. I prefer the wet method. You can use a steam iron, but do not touch your piece of work, otherwise you will damage it. Or you can pin it out dry and wet it at that point, but I find that wetting it first is an easier way to do it, and so you're just getting a nice glance under the desk. So I hope that was helpful. Happy hooking, guys, and I'll stick a picture on tomorrow. Have fun. Bye.